everyone, so this is the next layout in my holiday album. So I'm just showing you the previous page, and if you watched my other videos you would know I'm doing a 12 by 12 and a pocket page on the facing page, and I'm actually going to start with the 12 by 12 first, but I just wanted to decide where the photos would go, and I've decided I'm going to use this photo of my daughter pretending to kiss Pepe Le Pew on the 12 by 12 because I really think it's cute. And the collection that I'm going to use is the Project Life, the Becky Higgins Project Life 12 by 12 paper pack, the Honey edition. So I love the colours of the papers in this collection. And what I've decided to do, rather than cutting into new pieces of paper, is I'm going to pull out all of the scrap pieces that I've cut into. So often with paper collections that I have, I will keep the sort of scrap pieces with in a Ziploc bag with the rest of the papers, so that I make sure that I'm using up those scraps rather than kind of throwing them into a big scrap bin and then I never come back to them when I use the collection. So what I'm doing is pulling out all of the scrap pieces of paper. I'm not cutting into any new sheets of paper at all. I did consider using, there's a cloud paper in this collection that I've used one of, and I considered using the other one as a background paper, but I decided that I'm going to not use it. It's a little bit busy, I think, so I just put that aside and just pull out the papers that have been cut into that I think will work. So you can see I've got lots of bits and pieces here. There was a couple of others that were cut into, but I didn't think it would work for this particular layout. And I really love this paper pack because, as you can see, for example, with that camera print showing, there are some things that you can cut out and use as embellishment. I've cut into that word sheet before and used some of the words and also the cameras as embellishment. And there's also another camera print that's sort of smaller cameras that you can use sort of instead of washi tape and things like that. So I really have enjoyed using this collection and have used a fair bit of it, but have decided to revisit it. I've had it for probably over 12 months in my stash and have decided to come back with it. So because I had a lot of these sort of bits and pieces of paper, I decided I'd probably use a white background and then layer these pieces on top of it. So I'm going to cut some smaller squares from some of these pieces, and I'm using this piece with the grey circles that have stars in the middle just to add a little bit of a neutral layer. I thought it was getting a bit busy with all of the colour, particularly the two different chevron patterns. So just grabbing a white piece of cardstock there, and then I'm going to start layering the papers. Now I do play around with the papers a little bit, trying to get it, you know, looking good behind the photo in the way that I want it, and I think that, you know, that's my process, is just to keep playing around with things. I know these colours work together because they've all came out of the same paper pack, but really I just need to get it looking right on the page. So I wanted that grey piece to extend a little bit further behind the photo, so I've cut it into two pieces and I'm going to line them up so that it looks like they're actually one big piece behind the paper. If you've watched my videos, you would have seen me do this trick before, particularly if I'm using 6x6 paper pads. And while I've got this paper out, because I know I'm going to be doing the pocket pages on the other side, I'm going to cut some 3x4 pieces that I can use for the pocket pages on the other side. I just figure, you know, while I've got the papers out, I can do the cutting now. Because I did lay those photos to where I want them, so I know that I'm going to need at least 2 3x4 pieces on the opposing page, and then whatever I don't use on the opposing page I'll just put into my stash of Project Life cards and have some extra colours there, which the colours that I chose I really like and I think would work really well with plenty of other Project Life layouts. So you can see I've just cut those there. And I also had this little strip left over of the circles with the stars, and I thought I'll include that and trim that up. So I'm not using that red chevron piece for now, so I'll add that to the collection that I'll use later on, and you'll see when I do the pocket pages that I do go back to these pieces. So I just had these little strips of stars, and I thought that I could add those to the top and bottom behind the photo. It would add an extra layer, but it was a bit of a cheats way because there was not actually a big piece, but looking at that layer, you would think that there is quite a large piece. So also cut some strips of those little cameras that I was referring to earlier. And now just looking at these bigger cameras that I'd like to use as embellishment, and cutting a strip of those off, and then I'll also cut those down later, choosing cameras that actually suit the colours that are dominating the layout. So while I've got this polka dot paper out, I'm also cutting down the project life card, so just measuring where that might go and then trimming those down as well. So you can see I went to layer the papers and then decided to go back and just cut things down while I had everything out. I just find this process is a little bit easier if I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing on the opposite page when the time comes. I'll have some things ready to go and the page will be a lot quicker. This album was from April 2015, and it's taken me this long to actually scrapbook the photos, so I really need to get on with that. I look at this green piece, but I'm pretty sure that one doesn't make it onto the layout in the end. And then I decide that I want a bit more of this aqua piece with a white polka dot, so I do the same trick as I did with the grey, where I cut it in half and then I actually put it behind the photo and line it up so that it actually looks like a bigger piece than what it actually is. So starting to come together those layers, and I decide I'm not going to use the words right now, so I'll just pop those off to the side shortly, and just looking at those papers, so they're quite large pieces of paper, and that's what I'm going to put back into my Ziploc bag. So what I've done is actually neaten up those papers a lot, trimmed off a lot of the edges and things like that, and made them into squares and more functional for the next time I pull that collection out. So one of the reasons I like to do those layers is to be able to use up those bits and pieces, and sometimes I'll just challenge myself to pulling out a scrap drawer, which I do have for things that aren't in a collection, and just try and piece some papers together to create a background for the photo. So a little bit different, I've stuck down that red and white chevron piece because that's where I want to anchor everything, but then because I've got these smaller pieces that are going behind the photo, I've decided to work from the back of the photo, and then what I've done is just use a strip of paper to line up where those will go. I didn't quite get it right, just because I didn't cover up all of the double-sided sticky tape on that sheet. So and then I will sort of work behind the photo a little bit before I adhere the whole lot down. So I just had to trim that because it wasn't quite straight, and it wasn't a piece that I actually had cut today. It was something I'd cut previously. So just putting the double-sided tape on the actual paper, and then lining up where I would like that photo to sit. And then I realised that actually I put the double-sided tape a little bit further down because that piece will be showing. So just rolling that back up, and it's quite easy to do, which is a reason I like working with the double-sided tape rather than a glue that you can't kind of get rid of if you make a mistake. It is a permanent adhesive that I'm using, but yeah, it does, if you sort of work on it straight away and you haven't pressed it down, it does peel off quite easily. So as you can see, I'm just layering that polka dot piece where I want it, and then I'll flip it over and use another piece of paper to line up where that will go. Having some trouble deciding where I actually want it to line up, but there I'll flip it over, and then I will add the other piece by using a strip of paper and lining it up. So saves on measuring, which I'm not a huge fan of if I can avoid it. So and then I'm just looking at where that grey piece will go as well, and then I think I do a similar kind of thing where I'll stick one down, and then I think I used the actual mark of the chevron, the red chevron there, to line up the other piece. I kind of make note of where the top left corner is on that grey piece, where that sits on the chevron, and I'll just stick that down. Because those papers are so far apart on the layout and there's so much going on in between, you probably wouldn't notice if you didn't line them up perfectly, but because that chevron pattern does have quite a linear, you know, there's quite clear marks of where things can go. I remembered that it was sort of sitting on the second point and to the far right, and then I was able to adhere that down quite easily. And when you use these kind of tips or tricks, you know, the layout does come together a lot more quickly than if you're trying to sit there and measure things exactly. So now just choosing some cameras that are going to coordinate with the colours that I've chosen. So basically going with a red, a grey and an aqua, because they're the sort of dominant colours on this particular layout. So I know I have the multicoloured chevron and the stars, which have got lots of colours, and I've actually cut out 4 of those. So I fussy cut those out, but I did that off camera so you didn't have to watch me do it, because I decided that one red camera would go on the facing page as well. And then I'm just looking at these puffy stickers. They're Heidi Swap puffy stickers, and I really love the aqua. As you can see, I've got virtually no letters left, but every time I do a layout with aqua, I do tend to pull them out and hope that I can make something out of it. And I'm also using these, I guess they're like thickers, they're chipboard, and they're a muted kind of silver, so they're not a real shiny silver, but I really like the font on these, and I picked them up from my local cheap shop a while ago, and I do have a set of thickers that the font is very similar, but I quite like these, and they were, you know, at a discounted price. So I spent a lot of time fiddling around with how the letters are going to go. I know I roughly want the fun there, but because these letters are so fancy and there's a lot of loops and things, I'm finding it difficult to pull it together and make it look like it all fits, particularly the length of the tail on that Z. I like the length on the R because I can kind of tuck it under the A, but I'm struggling with the length on the Z, and the curl on the Y just seem to clash, and there seems to be a big gap there. So I do sort of play around with this for a fair while, trying to make it look all cohesive, but eventually I do get there. So the reason I chose this particular photo is, I guess, you know, it was a moment that you know, we decided to capture on our holiday, and I think, you know, the other photos that are going to go on the facing pages are all fun things that happened, but, you know, this was one in particular that sort of captured the mood of the day, and which is why I decided it should be the one that you know, it is the main sort of focus of the layout. And you know, it's just, we just got up to antics on the day, which was, you know, part of the idea of going to a theme park was to really enjoy yourself. And so this was, you know, one of the silly things that happened that we actually captured the moment. And to be honest, we didn't take a huge amount of photos. We were too busy enjoying ourselves. So this was sort of one of those ones that was a bit of a candid, you know, you should go and try and give him a kiss and make it look real, and I'll take a photo. And you know, it just, you know, really captured the mood of the day, I guess. So that's why I decided to include this one as the main photo. Now I'm going back to that green chevron paper now. I've decided I'm going to use this Tim Holtz pink circle punch, and that will be sort of the foundation for where my embellishments are going to go. I thought the cameras on their own were sort of a bit boring or bland, I guess, so I decided I was going to use these circles to kind of add a little bit of interest. And then I'm just looking for some washi tape that might work well. I had this shiny silver striped washi tape, but decided it was a bit too shiny, because the grey that's on the page is quite muted. So I do have this silver washi tape that's a little bit less sort of glossy, and it's got stars on it as well. So I thought that kind of worked well with the grey paper with the circles and the stars in the middle of the circles. So I've just picked 3 spots to embellish. I tend to do this fairly quickly most of the time. I think that if I just kind of look at the layout really quickly and choose places, then it sort of will frame the page really well. Whereas if I think about it too much, I find that I sort of go backwards and forwards a lot. So you can see I stuck that tape down pretty quickly, and I really didn't think about it too much. I just went, well, look, here's a gap. I need something at the top, and I need something off to the right hand side. So yeah, and then I just start layering with those embellishments in mind. So I've got the circles, which I will stick flat. I'm giving the cameras a little bit of dimension, so I'm just using my favourite thin foam squares, so they don't have a huge amount of dimension, and then I'm just going to layer those on in the different areas. I decided to put the red camera on the right hand side because we've got the red chevron really running the left hand side of the page, and then I sort of did the same thing with the other 2 cameras. So decided to put the aqua up the top because we've got that big sort of aqua piece down the bottom, and then the grey down the bottom because the grey would be away from the silvery letters that say crazy. So it was kind of just spreading the colours out across the page as much as possible, and having opposing colours in each of the different embellishment clusters. So just looking at what else I could add, whether there's some rub-ons. I've got there some Heidi Swap rub-ons, and also some puffy stickers, so I pulled those out for the layout. Just looking at whether I want to add some puffy stickers to each of the little embellishment clusters, and I have quite a few, so there was 2 different packs that I'm working from here. They're both Heidi Swap. Just yeah, playing around with what might look good. I always like stickers where you can see over the top, so you can actually layer them on top of the embellishment area. So I'm just using a couple of puffy stickers, and again just thinking about where the colours are and trying to add the different colours from each area onto the page. So I think, unless I pull out some enamel dots, some tiny word stickers. So I'm just adding some tiny word stickers to the clusters as well. And these are the Amy Tan tiny word stickers. And look, they are the best value for money, I have to say, because they were from her collection about 3 collections ago, and they just seem to go on and on. So I got 8 sheets of stickers, 4 different colours, so you get 2 of each sheet, and I just keep using them for layouts. So that about finishes this layout. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for my next layout, which will be the pocket pages that go with this one. And yeah, thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it.